So real quick, I'm going to hop in before we get started and just let you guys know that this one's going to be a fairly short, kind of just talking video about the build and all that stuff. Between the weather, it took me a long time to get the body painted, between being wet and cold, foggy, yuck, and just time. Spent a lot of time over the last week or two helping out, decorating the house, preparing for Christmas, getting the tree up, getting the lights up, doing Christmas cards, all that stuff, and then decorating outside. And we are hosting this year, so there's a little bit more decorating and prep work to be done than just having a Christmas at home. Anyway, guys, let's get to the video. Well, hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Adam, thanks for hanging out with me again today. And on today's video, well, this has been seen a lot. I'm gonna build the Boomerang. So I'm not gonna bore you guys with an unboxing and montage and all that stuff. All I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get it built, and then we'll come back and talk about it, what I thought of the build, what I think of the car. And I doubt if we get it run. Currently outside it's cold, raining, foggy, yuck. So what better thing to do than build a new kit? And I'm a little bit jealous of my northern neighbors in Canada. I've seen that Phil and Freddie, Fast Freddy RC, both got their squash vans already. So I'm a little bit jealous of that. So next best thing is, finally get the Boomerang put together. Anyway, guys, I'm going to hush up, get the build done, and then we'll come back here in a minute. Well, we have a chassis. Overall, the build went pretty well. The only problems I had with it were just me. For some reason, I had a heck of a time with funky brain fog, not wanting to, pay attention to everything in the manual. So, putting on the rear gearbox, I got it all together and was like, okay, good. And then I was like, wait, that's should be something else. And yeah, there's two pieces in there that you have to basically put in before you put the gearbox together. So I had to pull the whole gearbox apart, put those two little pieces in there. Thankfully, I remembered them from the Hot Shot build. But overall, no big issues. The only odd issue I had was this front shock. The rear shocks went together and they worked fine. I was a little worried about the, piston hole size and the fairly thick Tamiya yellow oil, but the rear does pretty well. It's a little slow, but that's fine. The front, you could literally push it down and it would just stay there, and it still isn't super great. It seemed like the shock shaft was binding up in the hole, because at first I thought, okay, it's just the oil is just too thick for that front end. So I actually took and put some 20 weight associated oil, which is way thinner, and it was still just sitting there. Evidently I need to put in another collar up here, which is kind of ridiculous because of the spring tension that's up there already, but it's working better. I actually took the shock all the way apart, took the shock shaft, put it in the drill, and then polished it with some 800 grit sandpaper, just to make sure that there wasn't anything wrong. I actually replaced the O-rings, thinking, okay, maybe I chewed up an O-ring and there's a bit in there hanging up. I checked the little plastic spacers, I checked the hole in the cap, everything allows it to pass through fine. It's just once you get it put together, it is just so painfully slow. So we'll have to work on that. Now that I've got it built and the battery's in it and it's under full weight, I can mess with that. I did put the clear plastic cover on there for now. It may have to come off. I don't know how well the body is going to go on with the plastic cover on there. It should clear fine, but it may have to come back off. It took some trimming to get this in there, because with the driver figure in this, it sits on this hoop, and they want you to cut out basically half of the rear to accommodate it for that. So I just basically notched both sides and fit it back in there, and I just trimmed everything else to fit as tight as possible and to cover up as much as possible. Getting the ESC in there and getting all the wiring away from the drive shaft is trying. It would have been better to have the battery port come out here, but there's already the notch in the chassis on this side for the battery wire to come out. So I was like, all right, we'll just leave it. And, you know, I just had to get creative, mounted it to the back of the chassis back here. So now the ESC is sitting straight up and down instead of down on the bottom. And I made sure to bend the wires from the ESC out, down, and then I zip tied them to where there's like tension holding it in that loop. So it's going to keep it away from that little spinning coat hanger drive shaft. So not that that little drive shaft in there is going to be super detrimental to the silicone coated wires. You know, they'll handle some abrasion, but it's always best to try to keep as much of the wiring away from any moving parts, just so you don't ruin your car, have a bad day, and, you know, it just make life simpler down the road. So everything is tucked up out of the way, zip tied in place, and, you know, I've got all the wires kind of pre-tensioned, so they're going to try to stay in position with the zip ties. So hopefully all that stays in there very well. Bench test sounds fine. You know, everything feels good. So I do still need to get the body cut out. I need to get the body painted and decaled, but as far as the buggy goes, it is pretty much built. So the one thing I don't like about this car, and I'm sure it's been covered in other videos, I just don't remember seeing it, is these little plastic sway bar link holders. They sit out front, they mount back here to the chassis, come up, and the sway bar goes through them. And it's supposed to, you know, if you're going in a corner and this wheel goes down, it's supposed to help pick this wheel up. The problem is, you pick this wheel up, it does nothing to this wheel at all. The little risers up here just twist. So, you know, it's decorative is what it is. So I'm gonna look to see if anybody has like some carbon fiber ones or aluminum ones that I can replace these with, because functionally this is doing nothing. The sway bar has much more tension on it to actually try to, because basically what you want is you want this wheel to pick up. When this wheel goes over in a corner and your car's doing this, you want this wheel to try to pick up to kind of flatten out the car. Well, because there's so much spring tension up here on to, you know, make the suspension work for both tires, you know, you pick up this side and the sway bar actually flexes, but so do the little mounts. So what should happen is these mounts stay perpendicular, this rod goes up, and it should try to pull this rod up some. Now, the rod isn't going to fully, you know, pick up the whole tire, but it should, you know, help. So when you go in a corner like this, it should help and pick it up a little bit to flatten the car out so it's not leaning so far to one side. Anyway, that's my only complaint. Everything else went together well. Like I said, my only issues with the assembly part was the brain fog of making sure I put it together right. So at this point, I'm going to cut it off. I'm going to get the body painted, get it decaled, and it will come back out once it's fully done. Again, it's raining right now, so I'm not probably going to be able to paint the body today. You know, even if the rain stopped, it is so foggy outside. I don't want to risk the paint, you know, doing weird things with that much humidity hanging in the air. So we'll get it painted. I'll bring you back once it's done. Well, all right, we have a fully built, almost ready to run Boomerang. The only thing I need to do is I need to take the driver figure back out and actually put some paint on him. But at this point, you can barely see the thing in there anyway, so wasn't too worried about doing it right this second. So overall, the build went really well. I do have some concerns, and I'll get to those in just a second, but it looks fantastic. The only thing I don't like, well, obviously the body pins aren't in back here, but the front end just kind of floats around. It is what it is. We've already talked about the little twisty fronts, so we're not going to go back into that, but it looks fantastic. I love the way this thing looks. It's definitely got the hotshot styling, the slant forward roof, the real low profile, and I actually do like the wing on the back of it a lot. I love the way it's two pieces, but it blends together like it's one piece almost. It really looks really nice. As far as putting the stickers on, these swooshes on the side are really the only hard ones. Everything else went on very well. And for those, I literally cut out, with the razor knife, just cut out all the tricky ones and then just cut and peeled the rest of them. So, you know, just I started it down to this very bottom corner, peeled a little bit back, cut it off, started it, and then I basically peeled it up to where the stripe came up here and then cut that off so I could lay all that down, and then I was able to peel off the backing of the very end back here. And you know, I know this has probably been done 100 times, but if you guys are building one of these, you want to make sure that these line up with these, and it says Boomerang Racing Team and Boomerang Racing Team. It's really easy to get distracted and put Boomerang and Racing Team on there, but the biggest thing is get these lined up when you put these down. And then I actually put the blue stripe on the wing, and then I mounted the wing. I put the body on, had the wing mounted, and then I could line up from this stripe up onto the wing and then around. You can eyeball it, but it was much easier to just have that reference point. And the sticker's long. You've got, you know, almost a ½ inch on each end of this stripe. So you can kind of hold it over here to where it lines up, and then you have your starting point here, and then you just make the same, you know, distance back here. You know, you guys know how to put stickers on. But it did make it a little bit easier to get them lined up. The only reason I say it's almost ready to run, other than the driver figure, is something back here isn't quite right. I'll take his body off so it doesn't make a noise. The front, you know, moves. There's no resistance really. You know, there's one little sluggish part, but I think that's just the molding of the gear. But in the back, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's like, there's definitely something, you know, I can't, it almost sounds like the hubs are squeaking. I'm not sure. I've got to mess with it a little bit more. I just noticed that not too long ago. You know, I fired it up, it ran, you know, everything sounded fine, but there's just a bit of like squeaky binding. So I'm gonna have to take kind of some of the bits of the rear end apart and check to see what's making that squeakity squawkity noise before we actually take it out and run. So unfortunately, that's going to be it for today. It's just a quick peek, quick look, what I thought of the build. Build went great. You know, getting the electronics in and getting around that wire, a little fiddly, but not terribly difficult. I did not put the big giant aerial on. It comes with the metal one that you can mount, as well as, you know, your standard aerial tube. Seeing I'm going to have this much antenna sticking out back here, you know, it's just kind of going to live back here. You know, a little tiny thin wire you're not going to notice. Still need to look for something stronger than that wiggly jello up there. The front, I put the extra spacer in the front, and it's slow, but it actually feels a whole lot better. So with the battery in it, you know, you drop it, it's got a little bit of a bounce, but overall, I think it'll be just fine. You know, I'm not going to take it out and beat it and run hundreds and hundreds of laps on it. This one is going to kind of be a run it once in a blue moon type thing, along with most of them. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys liked the little quick video of the build. I thought it turned out looking great. In the run video, I'll get up close pictures. I'm not going to take them until I get the driver painted. So with that, guys, everybody out there, you guys be happy, be healthy, be safe, and I will catch you on the next one.